Hello, one and all, to another episode of Versus Universe Commentaries. I'm your humble guide, Sky T. I'm here, joined by myself. Uh, that's a reference people might get. Um, I don't know if you like actual play, you'll probably get it. Uh, Zuko versus Roy Mustang. Zuko versus Roy Mustang. This episode was interesting to put together, I'd say, and most of my difficulties putting this together were like finding motivation and like getting myself just through it, kind of putting myself through the motions a little bit, but doing it because I have to, because people expect this show to get made. So why this matchup specifically? I hear you crying in the streets. Well, it's a thing of like Zuko Roy has always been my preferred for Zuko ever since I watched FMA. Because the dichotomy between the two series as a whole is, I think, really interesting. And if there is. And I'm also a big fan of both things. I've been a fan of Avatar, like, since it came out. Like, I watched this shit when I was a kid while it was coming out, and I was so enamored by like the world and the characters and like the magic system. It was just like it was a thing of where like I would go outside to play in the snow and be like, look, I'm a waterbender. Like it was that kind of shit. I have a vivid memory of like thinking like, oh my god, I'm a waterbender when I went outside and played with snow, and like also in the shower. I got it to drip down my arm. I'm like, oh my god. But so Zuko was like is probably the best character to examine in terms of like Avatar characters because he's fucking rad. He's got a good like A to B story to get into, to dig into. Characterization is hugely important for him, as is with every Avatar character, but like him specifically. And like he demonstrates a bit of like firebending abilities, but he it's not like he's like the most he's not the best firebender in the show. They make a point to be like, nah, he's not the best. He's not supposed to be the best. He's just really good, and it's more about his personal journey than like his ability to kick ass. But he can still kick ass if he needs to. Um, and because he's the firebender we see the most in the show, he's the one that demonstrates the most creativity. Like he'll protect himself in the cocoon. He'll use fire daggers if he has to. And I wanted to have like a mission statement for myself with these guys, and that was I wanted to only use one main source for everything we talked about. Like, I didn't want to use any of the Avatar comics, and I didn't want to use any of the 2003 FMA series. Hello, myself, because I didn't feel like it fully captures the character as well as like Korra, but like Zuko and Korra is old. It's like you want to use comic Zuko, you can. And the design in the thumbnail and in the fight illustration are based on the design from the comics, because that is like the natural endpoint for his character, where I feel like it would make sense for him and Roy to meet. But still, it's something where it's like I just don't want to touch on it because it really doesn't matter for his overall character. And if I don't bring up his mom, which I don't think I really do, except for the fact that it like helps his character along. Um, I I don't feel like it's necessary to even bring up the comics, other than like Zuko can fly and he flies a little bit in the fight, and like that's a big thing in the comics. Like everybody can fly in the comics, uh, which is weird because I just watched all of Korra season 3 yesterday, and they make a big deal out of Zahir being able to fly. I'm just like, these motherfuckers have been able to fly since before Zahir was fucking born. Like, I guess somebody didn't read the comics. Uh, Also using like official sources for this also was hugely fun. I got the entire series for both of them. Found it, downloaded it. Uh, this is a remaster. Hi Axel. Yeah, that's the second appearance of Axel in this episode. That's crazy. I just noticed that there's two appearances of Axel. Oh my god, that was not intentional. But this is actually a 1080p remaster of all of Avatar, uh, which is really interesting. And there's some haloing effects I know in the beginning of the show, but it gets pretty better the more you get into it. Uh, I've been kind of like, I think partly because I started working on this, I've been like slowly getting back into Avatar as a series. It's a weird kind of thing where like I just didn't really care about Avatar while I wouldn't say I didn't care. Just it was a thing of like, well, this is work and I'm not really I don't find editing super fun, so I tend to kind of make my editing a bit bare bones. There's not much panache to it. But I try to show what I'm talking about, and that's the basis of it. It's nothing crazy, but I getting all of the series for this, as well as like double checking all uh the footage and like that kind of stuff, and like just googling like when does this happen? Okay, here's the episode. I have it right here. I can put it right here, as opposed to usually like getting clips from YouTube, which is what I usually do. Was a lot better. It was a lot easier, but also these files take up so much goddamn space that I had like 1 gig free on my hard drive because of these fucking massive shows. Like you wouldn't think it's 61 episodes for Avatar and I think 62 for not 60. It can't be 62. I think it was like I think it was. It was something like that for FMA. Uh, so both around 60 episodes, and those 20-minute MP4s. Oh my god, they took up so much space. You wouldn't think of it like it adds up because one episode is about 2 gigs. So 60 times 2, that's 120. Like that's a lot of fucking space. Here's my ethical stance on Nazism. Nazism. Uh, I don't like it. uh, Big thing too for me was that I really wanted to make sure that if I could, because this bothers me a lot, people always like point. They feel like I feel like people tend to always skew Zuko's face so that the scar is always on the wrong side. And I was really lucky. I managed to get this through Paramount. And unfortunately, I had to cut something. I did have to cut one thing. And that one thing was, I believe in the last paragraph, there was an excerpt where I wanted to play the clip of Iroh talking to Zuko, where he's like, it's time to ask yourself the big question, who are you and what do you want? And I couldn't because it got flagged and it blocked the video in every country on the world because I played a 5 second clip of a character talking. But luckily, I managed to get the end clip in here. And that one just made it so that I couldn't monetize the video, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I don't do this shit for money, but like having that, oh my god, it was a nightmare. I have 3 separate cuts of this episode uh, that I tried and tried to get through. And even then, if you listen to the end clip and play with the show, you'll notice it's a bit pitched down because I had to because I thought correctly that it was getting flagged because of the audio, but I fucked with the pitch and still got claimed. So anybody who talks about Avatar on YouTube has my full respect because oh my god, getting this to work was a nightmare. And I'm happy I did it. I wouldn't have had it any other way, but it was a lot of work to get this video in a presentable place, and I'm worried this commentary is going to have similar problems. But hopefully not. Hopefully not. And there we go. That's Zuko's analysis. Uh, I like showcasing like A to B stories with versus the universe a lot, which is why I tend to gravitate towards characters who change a lot over the course of their stories, like or characters I have something to say about their stories with. Like I have a lot to say about Dunban in terms of like his role in Xenoblade, so of course he gets an episode. I have a lot to say about fucking Jaime because he's cool. Like, I have a lot to say about Roxas because I want to present his story as close to how I experienced it as I can. And before we talk about FMA a little bit, I want to bring up something that I've talked about before, but since we're talking about Avatar, it's probably on some people's minds. Uh, First season, I had an episode planned that I just felt like I couldn't do or just didn't have the motivation to do. And that episode was Daredevil from Marvel. Just regular Matt Murdock, not like MCU, anything like that, versus Toph. And the reason that fell through is because I couldn't really find a voice actor for Toph. Or Matt, for that matter, but I didn't really look. I was looking for actors in like my circle that would be willing to do it, and I just couldn't find any. So I didn't. I didn't get one. Uh, so, oh, by the way, I figured out how to add gradients to text. So you're gonna see a lot of this shit. um, so Roy is an interesting character to dissect because I feel like not a lot of people talk about Roy that much, which is surprising to me because I feel like he's one of the most layered characters in all of Full Metal Alchemist. Like he has a lot of growth and decay and introspection in terms of how characters go, and he's an interesting character to put in here because he's done terrible shit like this. He's killed a lot of people, but he clearly doesn't like doing it, and he's essentially like portrayed as a bit of a hero. And there's a lot to say about how the series portrays Roy versus his actions, and like if Roy were a real person, would you forgive him for what he did, understanding the circumstances under why it happened, or would you like condemn him? Like that's I feel like if you can have that conversation about a character, that character is a very well written guy or girl or NB pal. uh, I I don't know. Roy just always interested me because of his character and his place in FMA, as well as his alchemy. Because watching through FMA for the first time, I was noticing something, and that thing was, holy shit, Roy is cracked. Like, in terms of abilities in the world, I talk about it here, but Flame Alchemy is like the most powerful, like the most powerful. It is the most powerful thing we see, like bar none. I can't think of a single thing other than like Father at the end that is more powerful than Flame Alchemy. And even then, Roy does this all without like a Philosopher's Stone, which is crazy. Like I talk about it, it's fucking insane, the power that this guy has, and his story is all about power, and like wielding it for the greater good, or using it for malevolence, or like power both literal and figurative. Oh my god, I should have fixed that edit. Oops. I even like or rendered this analysis out and got places I wanted to fix an edit in, and I just forgot to do that. Whoops. Um, it's a terrible day for rain. It was weird. I feel like riding Mustang was one of the hardest things to do with this episode. and we'll talk about it in the fight, but characterizing him as a bit buffoonish, but clearly in charge of the situation at all times, that was the characterization I wanted to have versus Zuko kind of always playing catch up, and Zuko having to kind of quickly problem solve his way through Roy clearly overpowering him. And, like, we'll talk about it here in the fight. But I think I've said basically everything I want to say about Roy, and, like, it's a thing of, like, I feel like, in terms of, like, the matchup, I feel like they complement each other way too well to like, pass it up, because their stories, like, it's like that George Lucas quote that everybody loves. It's like poetry. They rhyme. No, it's, uh, they're not mirrors, but they do like share some traits with each other. Aside from being like fire boys, like I feel like Zuko and Roy both have to really work on themselves as people before they're fit to be like true leaders. And I find that arc very interesting to analyze because it's done so differently in both of them. Where like Zuko's is a journey of self discovery and self actualization, whereas I feel like Mustang's is a lot more external. It's changing the world to fit his vision, whereas Zuko is changing his vision to fit the world. And like having them talk about that, and I might have just talked out of my ass there, honestly. Like I don't know if you can follow the thread on that sentence, but to me it makes sense. Talking about this shit. And this was just to demonstrate that, like, yeah, Roy knows other alchemy too. I don't really talk too much about, like, basic alchemy because there's not a huge need for it because Roy, like, never uses it. And I think he even has a line where he's like, this really isn't my style, man. uh, um, this still from the anime is crazy because, like, this is not in the manga. And Roy has a mustache here. And he doesn't in the manga. And it's weird. And I want you to know it because I know it. And now you know it. and there you know. uh, Roy, am I right? I really don't have much of anything else to say before we get to the fight. So, uh, Amestris is kind of fucked, isn't it? Father looks really fucking cool there. I mean, they all look cool. It's the reason I had that for the end. Okay, weird thing. I couldn't get the audio for this from my downloads of the full series because it was a multi. It had dub and sub, so I had to get the audio from a YouTube upload, and that's why it sounds a little choppy. So here we have the fight, and first thing I want to talk about here in the fight is the voice acting. And you may say, what's weird about the voice acting? Well, my friend who is listening to this is the first time that I have outsourced a voice, and it probably won't be the last, given what I have to do for the finale. Um, wow, I just voice cracked like crazy. So Roy Mustang was a tricky guy to cast for, because I didn't want Travis Willingham, because I'm adamant that Travis Willingham, he did a great job with what he was given, but I just don't feel like his voice fits Roy as a character. Roy, to me, is not deep voiced. He's a slimy weasel who who needs to be stopped. I wanted kind of a mix of the sub, where he's a bit higher pitched, where he's like, Harumedo. I don't actually know how to say full metal in Japanese. I know it starts with Haru, but is it Haru Nemo? Haru Nemo? Haru Nemo. I actually don't know. Uh, but whenever I think of Roy in the sub, I think of that, and have it like how soft he says it, how sure of himself he is. He is like my ideal Roy voice, and and I like tried to find a voice for my friends that would fit. And honestly, Flip could have done a good job, but I want to give him a break, so he's not playing every character this season. So I went to casting call, and I put out a hit, and I specified what I wanted, and I was like, "This is gonna be paid." So this guy did get paid, but I got 33, I think, responses for the voice actors, and there was a couple that I really wanted, and unfortunately, the first one I contacted with, "Hey, I would like you for this part," couldn't do it. So I decided. So we got the my runner up, who is playing Rory right now, Blowfish Man, off of Casting Call, did a fantastic job, amazing, super cool. Gave the script to him. He got back to me within like a few weeks, I think. Um, and he did. He was like exactly what I wanted in a Roy voice, where it was distinguished, but a bit higher pitched, and basically nothing like Travis. But I really didn't want Travis Willingham Zuko. Zuko. Travis Willingham Zuko. My honor. uh, and of course, my friend Nero voicing Zuko. For one main reason. Zuko is voiced by Dante Bosco, and Dante Bosco is Filipino. My friend Nero is Filipino. So, that's the reason why he's playing Zuko. I mean, like, yeah, that was one of the reasons, but also he was a big fan of Zuko. He auditioned for it, and he put the fucking nostalgia critic Dante Bosco Zuko in the fucking audition, and I'll never forgive him. But he still got the part. So, also Nerio did the thumbnail for this too. This is the first. Wow, this is the first versus universe thumbnail that I myself did not make, and I did that. But I want to say that because I don't really like making thumbnails that much. I find it very boring. But he likes it a lot because he's insane. I made like 4, 5 thumbnails yesterday, and my brain hurt. But he loves this shit. Um, and you see Zuko's design is from the comics, but it's based around the book 3 look. Whereas Roy, I think that's actually, I think that Roy's from a gotcha game, but it's way too good of a render not to use. So we used it. Uh,
My swords will spill no blood tonight. They are merely tools, and I will guide them with my body.
I really like how this fight turned out too. I was very adamant about a couple things. One was the setting. I wanted it to be set in the Fire Nation because that's a beautiful setting, and I wanted Roy to be an outsider, but him to still have the power in the dynamic was like that was exactly what I wanted. And here it is. This is the craziest art I've ever received from anybody. This is my deckhead who went way harder than he should have. I also like that it shows Zuko from his non-scarred side. It's a little thing, but it's just something that I find super interesting. Also, you notice that Zuko is actually pulling fire in from the torches, whereas on Roy's side, the flame is like getting blown back because of the force. I didn't notice that at first. Deckhead pointed that out to me, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's a cool fucking detail." So that's just something interesting about that. But that's honestly one of my favorite illustrations that I've gotten for this entire series, and uh, it's really it's rivaled by a couple that I still really enjoy. But I think next episode is also really fun, and it's actually was made by me. I did the art for the next episode, and you're gonna get to see it. But I also wanted to have Zuko kind of get a leg up, not because of his firebending, but because of the use of his swords, because Zuko isn't really a master firebender, but he is a master swordsman, and I wanted to demonstrate that a little bit in the fight. And him thinking like Roy's like Roy is cheating. I gotta fuck him up a little bit, but also not like not really harming him in any way. I should say I wrote this fight as a death battle a very long time ago, like 2020, and I had the solution to Zuko finding out that Roy's fire comes from his gloves to be that he cut off his hand, and I just never liked that. It was too graphic for me. However, I like it more where he just uses the sword to take off the glove and then cut it then, which is really silly, but it's also way more cool to me because it's more silly. Also, using lightning redirection on the alchemy sparks was an idea I had like very late in the game, but I wanted to show Zuko redirecting some lightning, and I didn't want to have it rain because that demobilizes uh, Roy like a whole bunch, and like that's it's a very circumstantial like uh, advantage that Zuko has, where he's like, yeah, I can bend fire in the rain, and Roy can't. Roy can't use flame alchemy in the rain. Um, and I like the symbolism of like Roy being literally powerless in the rain, and then Roy feeling powerless when Hughes dies, and he's like, "Oh, it must be raining," because I feel bad. Also, this interaction, my friend Kodo, I show these scripts to my friends early to get feedback, and this is one of Kodo's favorite interactions I think I've ever written. Having this conversation about honor and how it relates to them and the people they like, or the people they trust in, where like uh, Roy compares Zuko's retelling of Iroh to Riza, and I just realized Riza could have fit in the royal family because she has a Z in her name. What if she's a Fire Nation spy the entire time? Roy, watch out! No. Uh, that was one of their favorite pieces of dialogue that made its way into any of these episodes. Except for the next episode, which has a lot of fun dialogue that I'm very excited to put the fight together for. Uh, that I've edited all of the dialogue down. I'm just waiting on the narration for both characters. Uh, I'm really fucking excited, dude. It's gonna be a fun time. I think the rest of the season is going to be a very fun time. Episode 7 is going to be a bit more serious, but it's going to have goofy moments, I feel. And episode 8 is, I think, straight up going to be like super comedic. Because it has two very comedic characters. And episode 9 is going to be the finale, which is its own huge beast. I'm just very excited for it. And I hope you're excited too. Also, Death Battle's still my shit. I can't believe they did that. No, they. I'm just saying, yeah, you ever ask who had the Vader Obito first? You can say it was this guy. Zuko, speaking words of wisdom was something that I really wanted, just to show his growth and to show him like fully understanding what alchemy is all about, without even knowing what it is. To me, was like, oh yeah, yeah, no, that's the way to like characterize Zuko. Like he understands it, deconstruction, reconstruction. He just doesn't know what it's called, and like him wanting to learn was a bit of a through line. I did have a suggestion because I was wondering how to make these endings feel different, and I feel like I succeeded in that. But the main feedback I got was like Zuko's ending has like them kind of being peaceful with each other, and as two respective leaders of a nation, they don't really come to blows. And then I got the suggestion for like, what if in Roy's ending, they go to war? And to me, it kind of soured the mood of that conversation they have previously where they open up to each other a little bit. And that was pre-ending, so that's now where the timeline splits. Um, so here's where the timeline splits. Um, I just realized, did I steal this idea from Total Drama? Like two different characters getting this like two different endings depending on who wins.
This alchemy. It's unlike anything I've
Did
ever seen.
did
You must tell me everything you know
oh
about
no.
this.
I think I did. I'm sorry, Teletoon. I'm sorry, I stole your shit. I stole your idea. Well, we are nothing without the ideas we steal from each other, so I suppose I don't regret much of anything. Sip sip. And I can't remember if it's I think it's in this ending where Roy throws the glove and he's like, figure it out, dumb shit. And Zuko's like, okay. And like having them like walk off to do different paths in this ending and kind of staying together in Zuko's ending to me kind of signifies that they're going to be more friendly in Zuko's ending, which I think fits Zuko's characters more or Zuko's character more. And in this ending, they're going to be a bit less friendly, but still like acquaintances, which I think fits Roy's character more because like part of Roy's character is that we literally see him like play chess a couple times, and he's always losing, but he's still like playing and learning. So I feel like he would it'd be like a thing like keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer, and like to Roy, Zuko can be a very good friend or a very powerful enemy. So I think if it's Roy's character to have both outcomes influence the direction of his endings. And in fact, you could say that this one to Roy on Roy's side is more friendly than Zuko's ending, because here he's a friend, and Zuko's ending could still be viewed as an enemy. Um, yeah, I feel like I think I touched on pretty much everything with the fight. I can't think of much of anything else. Uh,
You may call me Zuko, Roy must say.
nah, I really can't. It's just kind of surreal, man. I just every time I get to the stage in the process, I'm just like, it's surreal seeing it all come together like this. Like I wrote this shit and they acted it. I edited it. It's all coming together. Guys, we are over halfway through season 2. We've gotten out as many episodes as uh, as I got out in 2022. We are 4 episodes into the year, done by Oren, Ben Jaime, Roxas Dark Pit, and now Roy Zuko. That's 4. So, and I'm aiming to get out at least 2 more before the end of the year. Um, I'm honestly pretty far into production on Vegeta DD. By the way, it's the next episode. I have I love that shot because it's so goofy. Yeah, wow, it's just surreal. Like I feel like I might be fast tracking to get to the finale because I'm not only am I excited to work on it, it's also going to be a lot of work to get anything done there, and I'm nearly done on one aspect of it, but that is one aspect out of many, multiple, and I say nearly done because I'm not done with it yet, and I want to get done with that first before I move on to much of anything else. It's going to be a lot of writing. It's going to be a lot of getting VAs for multiple characters and not just the main two, even though those will have probably the most lines. Um, but yeah, fucking, I almost said Aang Zuko. Fucking Zuko Roy is over. Production is done on it. I can feel good about this. I finally got this episode out. I'm happy with how it turned out. The VAs both did a great job. I feel like the only area where I'm like iffy on is a bit of editing and Roy's analysis, but like other than that, I feel super confident in this. I feel like it's a full package, and I yeah, I just feel good about this. I don't know. I don't really have any words to say. Thank you to Nero and Blowfish Man for both Nero for both doing the thumbnail and voicing Zuko, Blowfish Man for voicing Roy Mustang. Thank you to you all. Thank you for Deckhead for doing the not the thumbnail, but the fight art. And of course, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in God, maybe a month. Fuck, for the G to D to D. September, hopefully. I'm really excited for this, and I hope you are too. Bye.